there was some activity going on where we were about to release a new vat of Kurt's apple pie that had a finishing gravity of 3 bricks. And I'm like, well, that's way too dry. We need up about 6 and 7. So I had to go down and take a look at what we had in inventory and do some custom blending so that I could get the finished product to taste like my customers want it to taste like, even though my mead maker thinks it's good, it's not what my customer thinks is good, right? So I have to be very specific about why I do what I do and how I choose the decisions. And even though it's for me, just like breathing, the people that work for me don't understand how I do that, right? And so the specific nature of that art in a glass, like how do you smell it, how do you taste it, how do you look at it, and see that every single time is really demanding, because it's not, people have well intent and well meaning, but they don't always understand the slightest difference between good and excellent, and how do you avoid that catastrophe. Because being good is easy, being excellent is crazy hard, and the difference is so minute. I tell people all the time, it's smell, taste, and react, right? Like, so whether I'm making any of the meads that you guys are going to try, or thinking about food pairings, or the restaurant, or the brewery, when I hired my brewer, I said, he goes, well, what kind of beer do you want me to make? I said, good. It's got to be better than good. It's got to be great. I'm like, I don't want to sell it anywhere but here. I want it to be something that people will drive for, that'll come to visit us and can only get it here. I don't want to fight that shelf space. I mean, I used to be in Binny's in Chicago. I haven't been in Binny's in 10 years. We got in with LibDib, and LibDib was supposed to get us back into Binny's. And the buyer at Binny's said, nope, we've had that before, we're not carrying it, and canceled the order after we've already shipped it. I'm like, wave goodbye to that product. I'm never going to get it back again. And I was just like, how? We sell more product in the local grocery stores here in New Hampshire, like the high test meats, all of them, Kurt's apple pie, Desire, Fling, Red Dress, 20, 30, 30, 40 cases a week out the door every single week. And New Hampshire has a fraction of the population of Chicago, right? There's no customers in New Hampshire. So I know it's possible. And I know we sell more in California and Florida and Texas than we even come close to selling in New Hampshire. So why can't I get one of the most populous states in the Midwest to have my product anywhere in the marketplace? And it's all resource based, right? I need to have boots on the ground. I have to have people going in to do tastings. I have to, because, worst thing my staff can do is ask a customer for the first time, have you ever tried mead before? That's an irrelevant question. The relevant question, have you ever tried Moonlight Meads before? Because if they've had other mead before, they may be predisposed to thinking it's all not so good, right? And I'm not saying I don't have worthy competitors. There are many of them now. But when I started 12, 13 years ago, there were not that many that could hold a candle to what I could make. And the key difference is when I watch the reaction of people's eyes when they taste my mead for the first time, their eyes smile, right? They see something, they taste something they haven't had before. And then they say, how come I haven't had this before? Why have I not had this before? And where can I buy more of this, right? And that's been the power, the flame in my heart to drive me to get to this point for 28 years. Because I've seen it. I've seen it at homebrew conferences. I've seen it with half the people I know on this call who've met me before. There's a reason I do what I do, right? There's a reason I care so much to use the best possible ingredients. And I say that even knowing that I know I can make a better mead with like real fresh fruit instead of concentrate, but then I wouldn't be in business, right? So I've got to weigh the pros and cons to the point where I know I can make people still love what I do, and I can still do what I love at the same time, versus just being a stringent, nope, it's got to be this way. Now, I wish I could. I really wish I could hold that line, and maybe I'll eventually get to that point where I can swing back around to the way I used to do it as a home brewer. But I've got 20 employees I got to feed. right? And their families. I got benefits I got to pay for. I got all this other stuff, vacation pay. I get, it's not me anymore. I got poor Barley over here just waiting for a biscuit. So it's how do you do all that and not fear making a mistake? The reality is it's terrifying. It really is terrifying to see markets come and go. Like we were, I can't even remember the name of the distributor we had in Chicago. It was a long time back, but we were in Wisconsin too, and I was flown to Wisconsin and to do a tasting event. And I remember getting to the museum with the tasting event, and they had 2 cases of product. I'm like, well, where's the rest of it? And they go, this is all we have. I'm like, well, what happens when I run out here? I just flew, 4 hours across the country. I'm going to be here for 4 days to help you guys sell this stuff. And you got 2 cases total inventory. Like, and that was some valuable lessons. And I got the lesson from Jim Cook from Boston Beer Company. So 2014, I think, I won the Samuel Adams Brewing the American Dream. So I won 30 minutes time with Jim Cook. And so I was going through Jim, my business plan, real kind of quick and high level, because I only had 30 minutes. And he said, Michael, you're going to go out of business. He goes, you're selling to a middleman. Your middleman's selling to distributors. Your middleman's going to make all the money because we were selling to a broker. You're never going to make any money. He says, the worst part is you're going to go out of business if you stay with them. And if you fight them, they're going to sue you and you're going to go out of business. He says, so here's your number one problem as a business owner. Find a solution. So I went around the country. I met with each of my distributors, read through all my contracts, and I found one loophole. And that loophole was significant enough that I was able to get out of every single contract with these distributors. And that was best case efforts must be applied. And so using best case efforts means that whatever they do for somebody else, they have to do for my company. And these were companies that were importing like, sorry guys, hang on.
Cards for the bingo. We need more cards.
There's no more cards. It's only limited to 25. Sorry guys. So if with best case efforts, so the Krabby's ginger beer, they were, pulling in, tents and all sorts of stuff. And they were doing none of that for me. So I was able to unwind out of each of those contracts. But then that meant I had to now build distribution relationships with every single state that we had potential opportunities with. And that's how we lost Chicago or Illinois, which was we were in underneath the previous company's relationship. And, we didn't have any support in the marketplace. So Binny's, for example, and several others were like, yeah, well, nobody really wants your mead. Nobody asks for your mead. I'm like, well, they're not going to ask for it if they don't see it. Right. And that's hard part of the challenge, which is you have to understand now I'm a restaurateur, right? So I see both sides of this coin. So I know I'm the guy trying to sell the stuff. And now I know I'm the guy trying to buy the stuff. So what happens when distributors send out a blast email to their accounts, which I'm now one of, if they don't have any of your product, it doesn't show up on the list, right? So if you're a buyer and you're scanning down that list of trying to figure out what you want to buy and something's not there, it's not like you go, hey, where's Moonlight? You go, all right, well, you got whatever, St. Bernardus. I'll take app 12, I'll take this, I'll take, you take what you see. So it's if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And that's the biggest challenge to small breweries and wineries and meaderies and cideries in this country, which is the big guys don't care. They'll sell 2 million cases of Budweiser over 240 cases of Moonlight. It doesn't matter that they make more profit on Moonlight stuff versus Budweiser because the volume's not enough. I can't afford to fly them to the Super Bowl. I can't afford to pay, to play type of thing. So it's that's why I've changed the game. That's why with Over the Moon Farmstead, you guys want to see Barley. He's right here trying to chug at me. Give me Barley. Say hi. There he is.
There he is.
See him? So that's why I'm changing the game with Over the Moon Farmstead and Hidden Moon Brewing. I don't want to fight the never-ending battle of losing shelf space. So the biggest eye opener for us was when White Claw and all these seltzers came into the market. And I saw 2 or 3 of my friends in the industry have to close down their meaderies. And they had pretty booming business, especially in the session mead category. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why are these guys losing shelf space? Well, it's because they can unload a full tractor trailer truck of White Claw and it sell all day long. And they might unload a hand truck of, you know, pick one of my predecessors' session meads, and it's just there's no, you can't argue with the store owner that goes, well, I sell 2 pallets of this a week versus 4 of your cases. I'm like, you know, I get it. It's all about the math and how fast that square footage in the restaurant or the store flips. You know, that's the key piece. It doesn't matter how much you love what you love. You know, like I see that Pliny the Elder sign there, and I think of the time I had a keg of Pliny the Elder on draft at my house, and I know Vinny. Oh, Vinny and I were guest speakers in Australia, and I contacted him and said, "Hey, Vinny, I'd love to get another keg, maybe for my restaurant." He goes, "Mike, I can't." He says, "Everything that's ever going to be made is already pre-sold forever, and if I take one away from one of those accounts to get it to you in whatever capacity, I'm going to lose an account." And I'm like, all right, makes sense, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much I love things. Like, I go to ends of the world. I've got an importer license. I can bring in beer, mead, and cider from anywhere in the world to New Hampshire and then distribute across the whole country. But you know, I'm just a one-man band for the most part, and who cares, right? Like so when I go to Distruce in Belgium and talk to, you know, Herb and talk to him about trying to bring stuff in, he goes, well, yeah, but I already got a United States distributor. I'm like, but nobody's doing it in New Hampshire. He goes, yeah, but there's no volume. You know, and so it's kind of like you can't win, right? You can't figure out how to climb above that minutia. Even though I'd love to be able to have the only bar in New Hampshire that has any of these specialty things. Like don't just come here for my stuff. Come here because I love great stuff too, and I'm going to be the only guy in the state that has it. And I can't even get to, there's no ability to achieve that goal because of how crazy the laws and everything works, even though I have the licenses to do it. Sorry, I go on rant. So if I'm way off topic, you guys can.
That's all right. That's all right.
That was very cool.
No,
There was a
big
couple
high
of questions
five.
in the chat. I know that. And that was a lot of background, and that was a lot of the questions I was going to lead in with as to what your journey's been like the last few years. Questions about the mead. Where do you get your honey? And how many volumes of CO2 do you carbonate to on this one? And then how do you introduce meads to newbies?
So for honey, we try to buy organic honey out of Brazil. And the reason I like organic honey is that there's no pesticide sprayed anywhere near the flowers within a 6-mile radius. And there's a lot of pros and cons to the debate on what's really organic honey and not. Supposedly you can get some organic honey out of Hawaii, which I have used as well. But I buy my honey in 3,200-pound blocks. So a tote at a time. And we typically buy about 10,000 to 15,000 pounds of honey at a time. So we buy a lot of totes of honey. Consistency matters. I won't trust anybody on their honey. I fear being given samples of honey because how do you know it's even coming out of the same vat? How do you know it's even close to the honey that you're about to purchase? I have bought honey on sight unseen before from people I've trusted immensely, and I had to throw a lot of that honey away. So honey that's been stuck in a metal drum for a long period of time, even if it's a ceramically lined drum, could get cracks, which means the honey could corrode the metal and could cause the honey to then to oxidize and turn into this black tar looking like substance that nobody in the world would ever want me to make a mead out of. So, you know, spending that kind of money on a typical, very rare floral source honey and losing almost all your money because you have really no recourse on that capacity is troubling. So finding good honey suppliers, local people that you can trust. When I first started, I met a local beekeeper here in New Hampshire, and I was buying honey in 600-pound barrels. And I said, well, what happens when you run out? He points to this tractor trailer truck he has. And he goes, I got more in the trailer. And I'm like, where's that from? China. I'm like, so it's not your honey. It goes, oh, I package it here. So there's packaging laws which state that you can say where the honey from is where you package it from, not where it's actually sourced from. So there's a lot of loopholes in the way the laws are written and enforced. And the USDA's investigative source came to visit me to inquire about some honey that was being brought into the United States. And they show up with guns and badges, and you're like, you work for the USDA? And he goes, yeah. What do you need a gun for? I'm buying honey, and I'm buying it from the biggest honey supplier in the eastern United States. That was Dutch Gold at the time. And they were trying to track down some illegally imported honey because it's all about tariffs and taxes, right? So honey is a very regulated commodity. Even the honey that we're bringing in from Brazil, the United States has accused Brazil of dumping honey into the United States market to oversaturate the market and drive prices down. So now my honey prices have gone up significantly, and there's a lot to it. So I do buy local source honey when I can. I do have 2 beehives on my own property here, but a bee in her lifetime will make 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. It takes 6,500 bees to go to 1.2 million flowers for us to get enough honey to make 750 milliliter bottle of mead. So it's not possible to buy just local honey for us. 40,000 pounds of honey a year. I don't know how many trillions of flowers or whatever that number is, but it's staggering. And honey matters. Like each year, each varietal, each time of year when it's raining, all this stuff affects the flavor. So you really need to, I've seen pictures of my friends, going into the hop fields and smelling the hops, and that's the same thing for me with honey. I got to taste it. I got to taste it and think about where it's going to go. If you add eucalyptus based flower honey into a batch, I can taste it, right? And I don't want that. But the reason I try to strive for the organic honey is no garbage in, no garbage out, right? So the nectar is what the bees take out of the flower to make honey. And what they do is they put it into their honey sacs, and then their enzymes, and they pass it back and forth. It's not bee vomit because it doesn't actually make it to their intestines. So it's kind of it's cute to say bee vomit, but it's not bee vomit. It's ingested, but not into the digestive system. Cleaner, and it's hard now. It's been 28 years. I think I've entered mead competitions for 27 years, and I've won a medal at every single time I've done a competition. Those aren't odds that most people ever get to. Those aren't odds that I ever expect to maintain. But it still amazes me to see this happen. We entered an international competition in Warsaw, Poland, and we took home a medal. So their feedback was my meads weren't sweet enough. Well, Polish meads are typically way sweeter than anything I've ever made ever. And they thought my Utopian X, which is our 12-year barrel or 10-year barrel aged mead that's been 2 years now bottle aged, was too much oak. Not but the people that drop the kind of money I charge for my Utopian are more than happy to sit back and savor that flavor for hours on end. We had some other questions. What were they? Do I still make beer? Yes. A lot of questions now. Sorry,
It's a running commentary at this point.
So where do I get my honey? How do I introduce people to meads, newbies? I generally go with the feeling that I tell them this predates wine, right? And it shouldn't taste like wine. Wine's more or less trying to taste like mead. And they've changed it a lot over the decades or centuries. A really good mead can taste like a really good wine, but I've watched the folks at colleges try to, take their winemakers to make mead and present to classes, and it's not the same. You can't be a good winemaker and just know how to make mead. I think you got a better shot of being a great mead maker and know how to make great wine than vice versa. I haven't really dabbled in trying to make grape wine. We have made piments, so we have used 4 different styles of grape in the blending with the honey to make a particular mead. I barrel aged each and every one of them, and my slow dance, which was a Riesling grape aged for 4 years in a white oak barrel. Nobody's going to age a Riesling for 4 years, but your honey can do things differently than a grape has on its own, the antioxidant properties of it. And I've been called out on websites saying I can't actually make a 12-year or 10-year-old barrel aged mead. It would taste like garbage. People will tell you what their limitations are. Don't tell me what my limitations are. I haven't touched these barrels in 10 years, right? Like, I literally haven't even opened the bung. And, the fact that I'm the only wine made in New Hampshire, sold in the New Hampshire state liquor stores in the fine wine section is enough for me. I don't need everybody's blessing. I just need my own, and my wife's more than mine. So
I operate that way too.
Question about CO2 volume. I don't know if I really know how to answer that question. So we generally put the head pressure about 10, 15 PSI on the vat. And I don't know the math per se to get to this, but it's in the, there's a scale for like carbonation pressures for canning products. And it's right in the middle of the green level. And that's where we shoot for, right? We don't want to have it too high or too low. Because if it's too low, the canning line malfunctions and you don't get what you want. Let's see.